Opioids are the most potent therapeutics for managing severe or chronic pain. Opioid side effects include sedation, respiratory depression, nausea, constipation, and a sense of euphoria. Over 12 million people in the U.S. currently use prescription opioids, which activate the same addictive mechanisms as heroin. The National Institute of Drug Abuse estimates 5 million people currently use opioid drugs for non-medical reasons. At high doses, opioids shut down the respiratory system, resulting in respiratory arrest and death. Nearly 17,000 deaths resulting from therapeutic use of opioids occurred in 2011, outnumbering deaths from heroin and cocaine combined.
Cmx20 is a Milwaukee-based pharmaceutical company focused on clinical development of a non-narcotic compound for pain. Modeled after a research discovery at the Medical College of Wisconsin, our company's developed a new compound as an alternative to today's narcotic pain drugs. Both oral and intravenous drug products are in development. The IV and oral products can be used together in a hospital setting, and the oral product, which provides efficacy for up to 12 hours, can be used to treat many types of chronic pain. Cmx20 is an analog of arachidonic acid, a common endogenous lipid and one of the most abundant fatty acids in the brain.
The chemistry of Cmx20 is unlike any other pain therapeutic on the market. However, it's very similar to anandamide, an endogenous compound that is induced by exercise. It's also similar to a minor metabolite in acetaminophen called AM404. This is the primary chemistry that produces analgesia with acetaminophen. AM404 is produced through a conjugation of acetaminophen with arachidonic acid. There is another major metabolite produced by acetaminophen called NAPQI, which is toxic to the liver. These metabolites explain why taking higher doses of acetaminophen don't produce higher levels of analgesia, but rather liver toxicity. When the arachidonic acid substrate is used up, the production of AM404 stops and analgesia levels off. However, with continued higher dosing, more NAPQI is produced, which is the cause of acetaminophen's liver toxicity. Acetaminophen overdoses are the #1 cause of acute liver failure. Liver disease is responsible for death in roughly 2% of the U.S. population. While Cmx20 is similar in chemistry to AM404, it does not have the liver toxicity and dosing limitations of acetaminophen. Providing higher doses of Cmx20 is not toxic to the liver. Rather, higher doses of Cmx20 produce higher levels of analgesia, which correspond to those of prescription narcotics. More importantly, Cmx20 is less addictive and does not depress the respiratory system like narcotics, which eliminates the risk of addiction and suffocation from overdoses. Cmx20 produces analgesia through the activation of 7 different receptors, including CB1 and CB2, melatonin, adenosine, kappa and delta opioid receptors, and TRPV1. It does not, however, activate the mu opioid receptor like narcotics. Interestingly, these 7 receptors are also commonly activated by AM404, the analgesic metabolite in a century-old pain drug, and anandamide, the endogenous neurotransmitter that naturally produces analgesia.
The simultaneous activation of these 7 receptors work together synergistically and produce analgesia in many pain indications, including diabetic neuropathy, osteoarthritis, post-surgical pain, inflammatory pain, fibromyalgia, and back pain with sciatica.
There's a real need for a potent non-narcotic analgesic in anesthesia. A drug like Cmx20 carries no significant risk for GI bleeding, hepatotoxicity, respiratory depression, nausea, constipation, or abuse. Cmx20's multimodal activity enables significant opioid sparing. Additionally, both IV and oral forms can be used together as a replacement for opioids in the operating room, in the recovery room, and in the post-discharge pain management plan. The unique receptor activation profile also makes Cmx20 an intriguing prospect for the management of neuropathic pain.
Like all drug treatment courts across the country, the Milwaukee County Drug Treatment Court has seen a dramatic change from cocaine and crack to narcotics and heroin as the most problematic drug of addiction. This is because in the last 10 years, there has been a dramatic increase in the availability of prescription narcotics and relatively inexpensive heroin. Our government agencies estimate that there are 2.1 million narcotics addicts in the United States. Narcotic addiction leads to heroin, crime, and the devastation of thousands of lives. It's an enormous problem. For the welfare of society, the medical community in the United States desperately needs a viable alternative to prescription narcotics.
As a practicing anesthesiologist, I need to have drugs in hand that are efficacious but safe to use. Although narcotics are good at relieving acute pain during surgical procedures, there is now widespread use and abuse of opioid narcotics to treat less severe chronic pain. This is particularly true in the United States. We need alternative drugs that do not have all the side effects of narcotics, like tolerance, addiction, and respiratory depression, all of which can lead to crime and death. Cmx-20 works on a variety of pain receptor pathways, but not on the pathway that leads to all the deleterious side effects of narcotics. In both its intravenous and oral forms, Cmx-20 has the potential to bridge the transition from acute to chronic pain without the limitations of addiction, stomach irritation, or liver damage as to some other pain relievers. Reducing our reliance on narcotics will move the treatment of acute and chronic pain to a much safer level. This could dramatically improve the safety of analgesics for society.